In the rugged plains of 1800s Montana, where the wind howls and the days are long, a plain but strong woman named Clara Bell embarks on a journey to find something she never expected: love. A marriage of convenience turns into a passionate tale of heartache, healing, and the quiet power of patience. Hey there, welcome to Timeless Whispers. Grab a seat, relax, and settle in for a journey of love, loss, and second chances. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a heartwarming story like this. Ready for the ride? Let's get started. Clara Bell folded the letter with care. Her eyes lingered on the words, "A widowed rancher seeks a wife to care for his daughter." No romance. Just duty. Must be honest, hardworking, and of good character. Clara wasn't beautiful, unlike her beautiful sister Beth. She was tall, broad-shouldered, and full-figured. Men often looked past her. She had nothing to keep her in Kansas. Just dust and dead dreams. A marriage of convenience sounded like a strange kind of freedom. But this letter, this promise of a new life, was the chance she needed. She packed her Bible for dresses, kissed her mother and sister goodbye, and climbed aboard the stagecoach that would take her far from Kansas, to a new future. Thomas Granger stood by the gate as the coach approached. His dark hair curled beneath his worn hat. He was handsome, but cold. His jaw set like stone. He had been a different man before. Before his wife ran off with an Apache warrior. Before she died running from their marriage and their child. Her betrayal had hardened him. Now he just wanted peace. For his ranch. For his little girl. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a woman who'd help raise Ellie, and stay out of his heart. Clara stepped down from the coach, her boots hitting Montana dirt. Her bonnet shaded her face, but not her nerves. Thomas barely nodded. "Miss Bell." She looked up. "Mr. Granger." A small girl peeked out from behind him. Her curls were wild, her eyes wide. "You're big," she whispered to Clara. Clara knelt down. "And you're very pretty." "What is your name?" Ellie inquired. "I am Miss Clara Bell, and what about you?" "What is your name?" Clara asked her. "I am called Ellie." They entered the wagon and drove to Thomas Ranch. The Granger Ranch was big, up to 5,000 hectares of land. As they drove, they saw large herds of cattle grazing on the field. Farm hands worked tirelessly. Some gave Clara a warm smile, and she returned the smile, but immediately Thomas' face hardened. Clara couldn't figure out why. He never smiles. Inside the big beautiful cabin, Thomas spoke plainly. "I won't lie. This isn't love. I need someone to care for Ellie. That's it." Clara nodded, even though her chest felt tight. "I understand. I don't expect flowers and poems. We marry tomorrow. Simple vows. I'll give you a room. You'll be respected, but not expected to share a bed." Clara whispered, "That's fine." But something in her soul whispered that she wanted more. Days passed. Clara woke early, cooked, swept, and tended to the chickens. Ellie followed her everywhere, asking questions, giggling, clinging to her skirts. "You're like sunshine," Ellie said, wrapping her arms around Clara's waist. Clara smiled. "Then you must be my sky." Thomas watched from afar. He never touched Clara, never thanked her. But he noticed the way she turned the cold, beautiful cabin warm. When they went to church, whispers followed. "Oh, Annabelle was a beauty every man desires." "Why her?" One woman murmured. "She's no beauty." Another whispered. Thomas was being careful this time to avoid another ridicule. The other woman laughed. "She must have trapped him," another said. Clara held her head high. She felt like smacking them on their faces, even as her cheeks burned. Ellie slipped her small hand into Clara's. Thomas didn't defend her. But when she caught him looking her way during the hymn, his eyes weren't as cold. A storm rolled in one night. Thunder like cannon fire, lightning streaking the sky. Clara checked Ellie's room. Empty. Panic hit. She ran outside, calling for her. She found Ellie shivering under the barn. "Mama yelled during storms," the girl whispered. "Then she left me." Clara held her tight. "I'll never leave you. Never." Thomas found them drenched and huddled. Something cracked in him that night, and it wasn't the thunder. Thomas watched Clara dry Ellie's hair by the fire. She sang softly, brushing out curls. Ellie looked up at her like she was the only light left in the world. He turned away. Why did it hurt to see his daughter love another woman more than she ever loved her mother? Why did he care so much what Clara thought of him? Maybe because he had never had Annabelle love. Remembering Annabelle shattered his heart to 1,000 pieces. It was 4 years ago and it still hurts like a fresh wound. Annabelle Granger was a very beautiful lady, tall and slender with a beautiful blonde long hair, full lips and eyes like the color of the sky. She was full of life, love for adventure. Demanding. He saw all these signs but thought she was going to change after childbirth, but instead it became worse. He loved Annabelle with all his heart, he gave her everything he could afford, she demanded but it was not just enough. He remembered their argument, before the night she vanished. "Oh, Thomas, come on, you complain a lot. I know you love me, but I want adventure, I am very beautiful and men desire me." Annabelle said, "What have I not done for you? I provide you with food, clothes, shoes, I give you freedom to go to town and hang out with your friends and above all, I love you dearly, Annabelle." "Love is not just enough," she said, grinning. "I want expensive jewelry, beautiful bonnets, expensive clothing, and you can't give them to me." Thomas said nothing, just stared at her in disbelief. "You're a bore, Thomas. When it comes to love making, you don't satisfy my needs. My boyfriend knows how to do it. You are not man enough, period." Thomas was so angry that he raised his hands to hit her on the face, but immediately restrained from doing so. Their argument was so intense, Annabelle left that night and he never saw her again. One morning, Clara kneaded bread, humming a soft tune. Flour dusted her nose. Ellie spun around her like a playful kitten. Thomas paused in the doorway. He hadn't heard laughter like that in years. He didn't say a word, but when Clara glanced up, she saw something new in his eyes, softness. And something even more dangerous, curiosity. The sky turned a sickly shade of gray as thunder rumbled over the plains. Clara stood on the porch, gathering the last of the washing before the rain came. Behind her, the wind howled through the barn rafters. Ellie clung to her skirt, frightened. Thomas burst through the door. "The horses spooked. I need help." Without a second thought, Clara grabbed her cloak and followed him into the storm. Rain drenched them as they fought to calm the terrified horses. The farm hands were alerted to the impending danger, so they came to help with the horses. Lightning struck a tree near the corral, and a branch fell, pinning one of the colts. Clara, ignoring her soaked dress, threw herself into the mud to free it. Thomas knelt beside her. Their hands met, muddy, trembling. For a heartbeat, they stared into each other's eyes. Something unspoken passed between them. Back inside, Clara shivered by the fire. Thomas handed her a dry towel, his eyes lingering too long on the way her wet dress clung to her curves. "Why do you do it?" he asked gruffly. "Because it's not just your ranch anymore, Thomas. It's ours." He said nothing, but his hand brushed hers as he walked past. It was the first time he touched her willingly. Outside, the storm had passed. But inside that cabin, something had broken too, something heavier than silence. And something new had begun. The next morning, Thomas found Clara braiding Ellie's hair, her laughter soft like music. His daughter had not laughed that way in months. "Clara, can I ask you something?" he said quietly later that evening, surprising even himself. She turned to him, cautious. "Of course. What made you say yes? To coming here? To me?" Clara hesitated. "I wanted a home. I was tired of being invisible." He flinched. "You're not invisible. Not here." Clara looked at him for a long moment. "A man like you doesn't ask for a mail-order bride unless he's hiding something." Thomas stiffened. She had seen more than he expected. "There's more to the story, isn't there?" she pressed gently. He turned his back to her. "She didn't just run off. My wife, Annabelle, was already in love with that Apache before she married me. She only married me for the little money I can afford to give her and because her father made her." Clara's breath caught. "I wasn't enough," he whispered. "Not for her. I've carried that shame ever since." She walked up behind him, laying a hand on his arm. You don't need to prove yourself, Thomas. You're enough for Ellie. For this ranch. And maybe for me. He turned, his eyes searching hers. But before he could speak, Ellie ran in with a wildflower bouquet for Clara. The moment was lost, but not forgotten. That night, Clara pulled out an old quilt she had been stitching. Each patch was a memory since arriving, Ellie's first laugh, Thomas's rare smile, the storm. She didn't hear him approach until he was right behind her. "That's for me?" he asked, crouching beside her. "For us," she said. "I stitch moments into the fabric. This is my way of belonging." Thomas reached out, brushing a calloused finger over a patch. "You've made a place here, and not just with your hands." Their faces were close now, breath mingling. For a moment, time slowed. "Thomas," she whispered. His hand brushed her cheek, tentative but real. "I haven't let myself want anything in a long time." And then slowly he kissed her. Not out of passion, but out of longing. Regret. It was gentle, unsure, but everything she needed. They broke apart, stunned by what they'd shared. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I shouldn't have." Clara touched his hand. "Don't be sorry. Just don't make it anything." But just as warmth bloomed between them, a knock rattled the door. A man stood there, weather-worn, unfamiliar, holding a letter. "For Mrs. Clara Granger," he said, eyeing her closely. "From Kansas. Urgent." Clara read the letter in silence, her fingers trembling. Thomas watched, chest tight. "What is it?" he asked finally. Clara swallowed hard. "My sister, she's missing. Disappeared from the town months ago. They think she might have followed someone west. Maybe even here." Thomas frowned. "Why come here?" Clara's voice cracked. "She fell in love with an Apache man. His name is Dakota." A stunned silence filled the cabin. "Wait, Dakota," Thomas said slowly. "His is the same man who ran off with my wife?" Clara nodded. "They met through a traveling merchant. She might have been pregnant. They think she was trying to find him." Thomas staggered back. "What does this mean for us?" "It means the past isn't done with us yet," Clara whispered. That night, Thomas lay awake, haunted. His past and Clara's had collided in a way neither of them saw coming. In the next room, Clara stared at the ceiling, wondering if the happiness she felt was slipping through her fingers before it had even begun. And outside, under the endless Montana sky, the wind carried secrets, secrets that refused to stay buried. A rider came from town. An old friend with a warning. "The Apache warrior, the one your wife ran with, he's near." Thomas stiffened. Dakota, Clara's eyes met his. "Are you scared?" she asked gently. He looked away. "Not for myself. For Ellie. That past already took one mother from her." But Clara wondered, had it taken something from him too? The sun rose pale and distant over the ranch as Clara saddled a horse. She hadn't ridden in weeks, but the letter burned in her pocket like fire. She had to know if her sister was alive, if she was near. Thomas found her in the barn, tightening a girth strap with trembling hands. "You're not going alone," he said, stepping into the doorway. "You don't even know where to start." "I have to try," Clara whispered. He exhaled sharply. "Then I'm coming with you." They rode into the wilderness, the wind carrying fragments of memories neither dared speak aloud. Hours passed. The land grew harsher, the silence between them more tense. By midday, they reached a small trading post. An old woman watched them from a rocking chair, chewing tobacco. "We're looking for a girl," Thomas said. "She might have come through here. Taupe brown hair. Pregnant, maybe." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Could be. Apache boy rode through weeks back with a girl that looked frightened. Folks said she was crying. Weren't the first white girl he's run off with." Clara paled. Her heart hammered. "Which way?" Thomas asked. "Southwest. Toward the canyons." That night, as they camped by a dry creek bed, Thomas stared into the fire. "She might be alive," he murmured. Clara nodded, her voice a whisper. "But what will we find when we get there?" They didn't know the answer. But in the flames, Clara saw something new flicker in Thomas's eyes, concern not just for her safety, but for her heart. Maybe he wasn't just protecting her. Maybe he was afraid of losing her too. They rode into the canyons at first light. The land turned red and rugged, cliffs rising like ancient bones. Clara's hands trembled around the reins as her eyes scanned the winding paths. Thomas rode beside her in silence, but his body was tense. He didn't trust what they'd find. A sudden rustle made them freeze. Clara dismounted, following the sound. Behind a ridge, they spotted a crude lean-to of woven brush and cloth. A rusted kettle hung from a hook. Someone had been here recently. And then footsteps. A young handsome man in his late 20s stepped from the shadows. Apache, bare-chested with long dark hair, handsome chiseled face. And beside him, Beth. Clara gasped. Her sister looked worn, sunburnt, and frightened, but alive. Heavily pregnant. Clara? Beth's voice cracked as she staggered forward, clutching her belly. Thomas stepped in front of Clara. Protective. Careful. Dakota raised a hand. I don't want trouble. Thomas's jaw tightened. You already brought it. Listen, Thomas, I am not your enemy and never will be. Dakota said. Beth sobbed. He didn't take me. I followed him. I love him. Silence. Clara's heart twisted. This wasn't the same story Thomas had lived. It wasn't betrayal. It was choice. Beth looked at Thomas. She, Annabelle, chose him too, didn't she? He flinched. The truth was a bitter wind. She said you never saw her. Not really, Beth added. The words hit Thomas harder than any bullet. That night, back at camp, Clara lay awake beside the fire. Thomas sat beside her. Quiet. I see you, Clara, he said finally. And I don't want to look away anymore. Her hand reached for his. Then don't. They didn't speak for a while after that. Words weren't needed. Thomas reached for her, brushing her cheek with his thumb. His eyes searched hers like he was finally allowing himself to feel, to need. Clara leaned in. The kiss was slow. Tender. A promise long held back by grief and fear. Her fingers traced the edge of his jaw, the rough stubble beneath her touch grounding her in a moment that felt impossibly soft. You don't have to be afraid of me, she whispered against his lips. I'm more afraid of losing you, he admitted, voice hoarse. They sat wrapped in a blanket beneath the stars, pressed close. For the first time, Thomas spoke of the night Annabelle ran, how she'd left Ellie sleeping, how the trail of guilt had eaten him alive. I thought love was a lie. A trap. Clara ran her fingers over his palm. Then let me show you it's not. They made love slowly, surrounded by wildflowers and moonlight. No urgency. No shame. Just a need to feel something real. Afterward, she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to the rhythm of a man learning how to open his heart again. He kissed her hair. I never thought I'd get a second chance. You didn't, she murmured. You got the right one this time. But as dawn approached, a rider galloped toward their camp. Dust billowed behind him. Mr. Granger, the messenger shouted. It's Ellie, she's gone missing. The fire between them froze. Everything was about to change. They raced back to the ranch as fast as the horses would carry them. Clara's heart pounded, her mind spinning with dread. Ellie was gone. Vanished while they were chasing shadows of the past. The house was in chaos. Mrs. Avery, the housekeeper, wrung her hands by the hearth. She was playing outside. Then she just disappeared. We found this. She handed Thomas a note, the paper shaking in her hands. He read it aloud, voice hardening. You took what belonged to me. Now I've taken what's yours. You'll know where to find me and come with a lot of money. No name. But Clara saw the blood drain from his face. Thomas clenched the letter. Annabelle's brother. Your brother-in-law? Claire asked. He nodded grimly. He blamed me for her death. Said I disgraced their family. I didn't think he'd go this far. But why take Ellie? Clara whispered. Because he knows she's all I have. Thomas gripped the saddle, rage and fear warring inside him. I'll bring her back, he said. Even if I die trying. Clara stepped forward, voice steady. No. We will bring her back. Together. As they prepared to ride, Clara's hand brushed Thomas's. This time, he didn't pull away. She's ours now, Thomas, Clara whispered. His eyes shone. So are you. And with that, they rode off into the dusk, chasing the footprints of a little girl and the man who had stolen her, unaware that the final test of their love was still to come. The sun dipped low behind the canyon cliffs as Thomas and Clara rode hard across the jagged landscape, dust trailing behind their horses like a ghost. His jaw was clenched, heart pounding, not from the ride, but from fear. His daughter Ellie was missing, and the only man he knew who understood shadows and secrets of this land was Dakota. His horse came to a halt near the narrow pass. The fire was there, flickering orange against dusk's encroaching blue. Dakota sat alone, his back straight, his eyes already on Thomas as if he had been waiting. Dakota! Thomas called, voice hoarsely. Dakota didn't flinch. You wouldn't come unless something was wrong. Thomas and Clara dismounted. It's Ellie. She's gone. Taken. Dakota's sharp eyes narrowed. By who? I don't know. But I need to ask, do you know anything? Dakota stood slowly, then nodded toward the canyon wall, where smoke faded in the distance. A heavy silence followed before Dakota finally spoke. I've heard whispers. Mallory. He's not working alone. Thomas's brow furrowed. What do you mean? I believe this was arranged between Mallory and your wife's brother. They've been tied together before. I think they planned this. Thomas flinched. You're saying her brother is involved in my daughter's abduction? Dakota gave a slow nod. I believe so. And I'm willing to help find her. Thomas hesitated. Old wounds reopened. Why would you help me? After all that's passed between us. Dakota's gaze was steady. Because she's a child. Because I failed Annabelle once. I won't fail again. Thomas looked away, jaw tightening. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't ask for trust, Dakota said. Only a chance. Thomas exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. Then help me. Let's bring her back. Dakota's eyes flicked to the horizon. We will. But first, there's something I never told you. Thomas looked up. Dakota's voice dropped. Something from 4 years ago. About Annabelle, and what really happened the night she died. Thomas felt the cold canyon wind whip past him, but it was nothing compared to the chill curling inside his chest. His eyes searched Dakota's, unsure whether to brace for sorrow or fury. Talk, he said gruffly. What didn't you tell me? Dakota stepped closer, the firelight casting dancing shadows on his stoic face. I didn't just see Annabelle the night she ran. I followed her. I was trying to protect her, even from herself. Thomas tensed. Protect her from what? From the lies she was drowning in, Dakota said. She wasn't just trying to run off with me. That's what everyone believed. That's what you believed. I saw her leave, Dakota. I saw the pain she caused, Thomas growled. No, Dakota said quietly. What you saw was what Mallory wanted you to see. Thomas froze. Dakota continued, his voice low and tight with memory. She discovered Mallory's real identity days before she left. He wasn't just a merchant. He was a fugitive, wanted for fraud, land theft, and murder across 3 states. She tried to sever ties with him, tried to tell your brother-in-law everything. Thomas shook his head slowly, disbelief thick in his chest. You're saying she wasn't escaping with you? She planned to confront Mallory, expose him. But your brother-in-law, he'd already taken money. Blood money. He begged her to stay silent. When she refused, they tried to silence her. Thomas's heart dropped. She never made it to me, Dakota said. I found her, lifeless near the river bend. Not to me, but from them. When I got there she was already murdered. Silence blanketed the canyon. Thomas turned away, struggling for breath. Everything he believed. Everything he hated her for. The lie. She died trying to do what was right, Dakota added. Thomas's voice cracked. And I spent 4 years despising her. Dakota stepped beside him. Now you understand. Now you fight, not just for Ellie, but for Annabelle's truth. Dakota said to Clara, it is best you stay with your sister. Why Thomas and I go to hunt Ellie's abductors? Clara wanted to protest, but remembering her sister's condition, she agreed. Okay, Thomas, please be careful and bring my sweet Ellie back. She touched his cheeks briefly and waved them goodbye. Dawn broke harshly and cold over the canyon. Thomas hadn't slept. He couldn't, not after the truth Dakota had laid bare. Annabelle had died trying to right her wrongs, and he had buried her memory beneath bitterness and blame. But now his daughter's life hung in the balance. Dakota crouched beside a narrow trail, fingers brushing the soft dirt. 3 riders, he muttered. Heavy prints. 1 horse burdened with extra weight. Thomas leaned over. Ellie. Dakota nodded grimly. Likely tied or slung over the saddle. They mounted quickly, their horses cutting through wind and brush as they followed the trail north toward the abandoned mining valley. The same place Mallory had once claimed to own. What else aren't you telling me? Thomas asked as they rode. Dakota didn't glance back. Mallory used the mining land as a front. Underneath it runs a network of tunnels. Smugglers used it. It's where he hides now. Thomas cursed under his breath. And my brother-in-law? He knows. He's likely there, or at least knows Ellie's being kept there. The land changed as they approached. The brush grew thicker, the air heavier with decay and old fire. Near the ridge, Thomas spotted it. A broken wagon wheel, freshly discarded rope, and a child's doll. Ellie's. Thomas dismounted, heart hammering in his chest. He picked up the doll, eyes burning. She was here. Dakota stepped closer. Then we're close. But we need to be careful. Mallory has guards, mercenaries he pays with gold and secrets. Thomas looked toward the ridge. Then let's not waste time. But just as they moved forward, Dakota gripped his arm tightly. There's one more thing you need to know, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Thomas turned, eyes sharp. Dakota's gaze was firm. Your brother-in-law didn't just take Mallory's money, he arranged the kidnapping himself. The sky turned bruised violet as Thomas and Dakota stood before the narrow entrance to the old mining tunnels. Cracked would frame the mouth of the cave like the open jaws of a beast. From deep inside, the faint flicker of lanterns cast a glow that danced with menace. She's in there, Dakota whispered. Thomas tightened his grip on the rifle slung over his shoulder. His jaw clenched, every nerve burning. Let's finish this. They crept inside, the air damp and sour with mold and old coal dust. Their footsteps were silent on the gravel as they moved deeper into the mine's belly. From ahead came the muffled sound of voices, laughter, cruel and careless. Dakota held up a hand. They paused behind a rotted support beam. 2 men stood guard at the mouth of a side tunnel, rifles slung lazily, unaware of the danger approaching. Dakota moved like shadow, swift and soundless. A snap of bone, a strangled gasp, and the first man crumpled. Thomas rushed the second, knocking him cold with the butt of his gun. They moved forward quickly, deeper into the warren of tunnels until a soft sound stopped them. A sob. Papa? A small voice echoed. Thomas froze. Ellie. He bolted toward the sound, Dakota at his heels. They rounded the corner into a dimly lit cavern, where Ellie sat on the ground, wrists bound, tear-streaked and trembling. Thomas rushed to her, ripping the ropes away, cradling her as she clung to him. I've got you, baby. I've got you, he whispered. But Dakota stood frozen, eyes fixed on the far end of the cavern. A slow clap echoed through the space. From the shadows emerged Mallory, smirking, and beside him, rifle in hand, stood Annabelle's brother. Well, Mallory drawled. The grieving husband and the wild Apache. Took you long enough. Mallory stepped forward, boots crunching against the grit of the tunnel floor. His slick grin glinted in the lamplight. Well, he sneered. Come to rescue your little girl, Thomas? Or still grieving your whoring wife? Thomas bristled. Dakota stepped in front of Ellie protectively, but Thomas raised a hand. No, he growled. Let me handle him. Annabelle's brother, Ethan, lowered his rifle just slightly. His face was pale, jaw tight. You shouldn't have come. Thomas's eyes narrowed. You helped him take my daughter. Ethan flinched. You don't understand, he owns everything. My debts, my land. She was your niece, Thomas snapped. And Annabelle was your sister. Ethan's face crumpled for a moment, but Mallory laughed, cold and venomous. Your sister, Mallory said, circling like a snake, was a lovely thing, but far too curious. She should have kept her nose out of business that didn't concern her. Thomas's voice trembled, full of fury. You murdered her. Mallory's smirk faded. She ran. I didn't stop her. Dakota stepped forward now, eyes fixed on Mallory. You hunted her. Just like you planned to sell Ellie. That caught Ethan's attention. What? You didn't know? Dakota said sharply. He arranged to smuggle her across the border. Trade her for silence. You were just his pawn. Ethan's face twisted with horror. You said she'd be safe, he shouted at Mallory. She was never safe, Thomas said coldly, raising his rifle. A tense second passed. Then Ethan turned and fired. Mallory stumbled, clutching his chest, a stunned gasp escaping before he collapsed. Silence. Thomas lowered his rifle, breath shaking. Ethan stood frozen, smoke rising from his weapon. I never meant for this, Ethan said, eyes brimming. I just wanted to save what I had left. Dakota walked past him without a word, checking Mallory's pulse. He's gone. Thomas looked down at Ellie, safe in his arms, then to Ethan. Then it ends here, he said. But deep in his chest, Thomas knew, some wounds never fully healed. It had been 2 days since they returned to the ranch. Ellie, though still shaken, clung to her father like she had the day she was born. She hadn't let go once. Thomas watched her sleep now, curled safely in bed, her doll clutched tight. Peace had returned to the ranch, but in his heart, war still raged. He walked to the porch where Clara sat, his mail-order bride. The woman he married out of convenience. The woman he had kept at arm's length. She sat with her hands folded neatly on her lap, her eyes on the fading sky. She didn't turn when he stepped outside. Thomas stood silently by the barn, staring at the letter he'd carried for years, the one Annabelle left. Every word now felt hollow. Clara asked, "What will you do?" I buried my heart with a woman I didn't know, he whispered. But I've fallen in love with the one who stood beside me through it all. Clara's lips parted. Thomas. He cupped her face gently. It's not too late, is it? She smiled through tears. Not if you mean it. He kissed her, slow and tender. No more bitterness. No more walls. That night, Thomas stood beside Ellie's bed as she slept. Outside, the stars burned bright. For the first time, the house felt like a home. They married again. Not out of duty, not out of need, but love. Ellie wore a crown of wildflowers. Clara's simple white dress swayed in the wind. Dakota stood as a witness, his eyes kind. Thomas held Clara's hands. I was blind. But I see you now. Clara smiled. Then don't look away again. When they kissed, it wasn't a beginning. It was the mending of everything broken. After the ceremony, Ellie ran to Clara. Now you're really my mama. Clara knelt, hugging her tightly. And I always will be. That night, laughter echoed through the ranch. Music, dancing, food. Dakota leaned against the porch rail, watching quietly. Thomas joined him. You're staying? He asked. Dakota shrugged. Someone needs to watch your back. They both laughed. Thanks, Dakota, you are a friend to have. I have about 1,000 hectares of land I'm not using. I want to have it. I will have my solicitor sign it. For you and your generations. Dakota was overwhelmed. Thanks, I am very grateful. In the distance, Mallory's men were on trial. The truth had been spoken. Justice done. But here, under the Texas sky, something softer was healing. A family. Love born from pain. Hope rising from ashes. The end, or a new beginning. Love, betrayal, and redemption. Thomas finally opened the door he once bolted shut. But is this truly the end of their story, or just the beginning of something deeper? If you felt every heartbreak, every twist, and every stolen glance, don't keep it to yourself. Please, like this story, if you believe love can bloom after pain. Comment your favorite moment, or a twist you didn't see coming. Subscribe and turn on notifications bell for more historical romance stories filled with passion, suspense, and unforgettable characters. Share this with a fellow lover of romance and drama. They will thank you later. And remember, sometimes the greatest love stories are born from the ashes of broken hearts. Stay tuned for our next captivating tale. Once broken, now whole.